All right. Hi, everyone. This is Arpad from the YouTube channel Star Path Academy. And I just wanted to do a quick live because I feel like I haven't been live for a long time and kind of miss it. So I guess I just wanted to go live, right? Let's do another short midnight live as we used to. And basically, what I wanted to talk about is the importance of home gardens during the Soviet Union times in Romania for my family, and how essential that was for survival, but also it provided a baseline, kind of a safety net where you could fall back to. And it was one of those things that you did not um, appreciate until you really needed it. Because I remember when my grandfather still lived, we went back there and visited him, but it was only him working on the land, right? And I mean, he kept it up, but he wasn't in a good health condition back then, and it was just there, and he lived off of it somewhat, and from his pension. And we visited, and we sometimes helped, but we did not. If we didn't have no idea, we didn't have any idea how essential it will become once the fall happens, right? Once the Soviet Union fell and communism fell, and eventually we went into hyperinflation in Romania. What I call hyperinflation, of course, Wikipedia will tell something you otherwise, but anyway. So it was absolutely essential, but many people have sold off their plot of land to live in the big city because that was sort of the trend in communism. Was being pushed into cities, just like how they're gonna try to do it again, right, with the 15-minute cities and so on and so forth. And the quality of life, in the sense of how much you could afford um, to do and buy, even during communism, was much better in the cities because all the land was collectivized, right? And if you had a plot of land that was no more usually than an acre, right? And and that was just barely enough for town people to kind of work it while they went to the city to work, and then they came back and so on and so forth. And eventually everyone just figured, you know, selling your house to a crappy apartment in the city was a better thing to do. But of course, once everything fell, it immediately reversed, absolutely immediately. Right. So Lorif is asking where I'm from. Yeah, you can ask questions in the chat. I'll spend some more time answering them later in the video. I would just want to talk about my experiences first, but I'm talking about Romania. So yeah, it immediately reversed because suddenly that apartment building in the city wasn't worth much. It wasn't worth much because that's really tied to the job. That's really tied to the workplace, and the workplace was mostly factories in the Soviet Union, which were sort of almost right in the city center or very close to the city center, and real estate and such is really local. So I mean, that's, as a real estate investor, you should know, right? You're not technically buying the real estate, you're buying the opportunity that provides for people to go to their job, to have a good living condition, right? But that's changing. So it changed then, and it's changing now. And there are similarities that I'm seeing, right? If you look at real estate now in the cities, especially commercial real estate, New York, we had to have to double check the percentages, but sometimes it's like 80% vacant, it's 80% vacant or 40% vacant or 50% vacant. It depends on the city, but now you're seeing the trend from the pandemic of moving out of the cities. They're not emptying because there's a lot of immigration happening, whether um, they count it or not, right? However, you can definitely feel the big shift in inner migration. That has been a very hot topic for the last 2 years, right? So I'm not going down that path, but I think about 1.5 year ago, I did make a video where I said this will be your last good chance to move where you want to position yourself for the future, place wise. And that's why that is, I mentioned that because real estate prices were still going up and you could get a good deal, and you could sell your real estate in the city easily. So I haven't checked the case Schiller index recently, but my um, my guess is that they're not doing so well. And of course, it tracks only the bigger cities, not the case Schiller index. But I mean, that's what it looks like. So I'm not saying, I don't give financial advice. I cannot tell you you should move or you should not move, but I'm seeing the trend. Whoever has any brain cells to put together would want to leave the big city and get a piece of land. And that might mean that you're cutting back in living standards. You might have less rooms, you might have less comfort, you might be living in an older house. But hey, as long as you have that plot of land, if you can make that a 2 acre at least, hopefully without zoning restrictions or something like that, or you can take your you could take your work with you, right? If you're I mean, one good thing that came out of this pandemic was that now employers are totally fine as long as you can do your job from home. I guess if you're not Twitter or something like that. But that's one big thing that happened. And the shift, that was, I think, the catalyst. I mean, the shift. And now, if you're still in the big city, I don't know what you're doing there. But basically, what I wanted to go back to is that piece of plot of land that my grandfather held on to dear life and would not want to sell. That sort of saved the whole family later on because he passed away in '89, just before communism fell. So he lived his most of his life during communism, right? And he didn't get to see the day when it everything fell. But as soon as he passed away, everything fell, and we immediately needed to go back to the small town on my mother's side and set up everything, right? So it was horrid because the tools were all rusty, because he was just living off his pension. He was just maybe growing some tomatoes or something like that. I don't think he even had animals at that point. He actually somewhat relied on us too, I guess. But what he left behind, just the knowledge, the house, and the land, then we suddenly relied on him. And look, my father couldn't quit his job in the factory, of course. So at first, what we had to do is go back and forth. And we usually did was some family members moved out there, like my grandmother and my aunt, then my cousin, and then myself and my on my side of the family, my mother and my father still had the job in the factory, which was kind of they were letting everyone go, but German investors bought some parts of the factory so they could still stay there and work. But basically, what I wanted to say that the lesson here is that hey, even if you cannot move because of your job, as long as you can still get a plot of land, maybe an hour or an hour and a half from where you are, somewhere out in the county without restrictions, without maybe in a different county where the big city is. So it's maybe the atmosphere is different, if you know what I'm alluding to. Um, you gotta think about it seriously. Think about what that opportunity will mean in the future. And if nothing else, look, you're gonna have a bunch of fun weekends there together with your children, together with your wife, together with your husband or your parents or someone. You get to do something. Get a hobby, right? Get a hobby. If you're a man, start building stuff, and if you're a woman, start growing stuff. That's how has always been, since the dawn of days. So just because we have technology now or internet, that didn't change, right? That still has to be the same way. And that's it's I mean, we're talking about mental health epidemics, mental this, that, but like, when was the last time, especially when you're in the city, when you dug through dirt with your hands and foot in the ground and planted something, right? How about your children? Are your children doing that? It's very important, just not just the microbes and all the scientific stuff, why it's good for you, but just like a mental health. So as long as you can do that, right? And if you cannot do that, then make a plan and do it, because it was absolutely essential for us for survival. And hey, even if it's not for the economic reasons, even if it's not for, total collapse of society or anything like that, I know very, very few people, if at all any, who have ever regretted that they moved. Moved away. And look, it depends on where you are in life and the age you're at. But think about that. Right. So we were lucky because in our small town, we had my grandmother's plot of land and my grandmother's sister's plot of land very close, and then my grandmother's sister plot of land, who had her father's plot of land. So it was actually three plots of land. And by plot of land, I mean usually less than an acre. That whatever was left for you during communism. Everything else that my family owned was taken away. But usually, if you take a look at an old Romanian town, it's usually there's a main street and then offshoot streets, and there's rows of houses on each street, and behind every house, there's a plot of land. And out of from that, when that ends, then the agricultural land starts, right? That was taken away, but usually that 1 acre piece of land was left there for you. And if you could combine three or four, or if you had cousins, then you can really work it out, because some could focus on growing feed. Someone else could grow the animals, and you could work it out. Maybe another plot of land where you're going to have an orchard. But that kind of forced us to work together, right? So it was my extended family and everyone else who worked together. So community, right? That you have to have some type of community, and look for family members who may have had change of heart recently, and they have come maybe your way, and more getting more and more interested. And look, you don't have to give them a hoe and just point to the piece of land, but if they're interested in canning, if they're interested in doing something fun, maybe get them a KitchenAid machine or something like that, and start. Um, yeah, definitely there's things that you need to think about. And I think always search in family first, but then extend, right? So I think that's quite important. As long as you can get a plot of land somewhere where you can put a shed and maybe a root cellar underneath it, I think you're going to be much better off than you think, as long as you're willing and able to put in the work. So that was quite important. And look, the lessons that I learned might not translate directly one to one to you, because you might be living in a different climate, right? We were in sort of a different climate in Romania, and potatoes worked out well for us. However, I'm learning more and more about sweet potatoes, and it turns for my honest opinion, it's much easier to grow sweet potatoes. If you can grow sweet potatoes and you have cans of tuna stored away or something like that, and you have you can grow tomatoes and you can grow this and that, and maybe later on more, it's gonna be the most fun time in your life, probably if you do it together with your family, and after that, go from there. But you have no idea how much fun you're gonna have. I can promise you that. So looks like I have a super chat from Lance. Thank you, by the way. I haven't got one of those for a long time now. Thank you for the super chat. The question is, I have an eighth of an acre chickens on hillside garden. Eighth of an acre. Okay, yeah, that's definitely not much, but what we learned was that if you can grow animals, it's much more protein dense, right? So you can get away with a lot of things on small land. I mean, eighth of an acre is really not much, but you're being way better off than those who have nothing. Because if you can grow and store meat there, or smoke meat there, so to store it, right? You can make that piece of land really work for you. And that's where you're looking. You have to kind of plan for what you can do on the piece of land. But there are definitely, if you tie it together with a skill, you know. And I have an interview with Velebit Mountain Man. I don't know when, it was probably 2 years ago. Um, if you probably search Mountain Man, or if you know how to spell Velebit, which is a mountainous region in Croatia, I believe, um, you'll find it. I'm not saying do it unless you want to do it, but if you can lock together that plot of land with a piece of skill and you're willing to work on it, I think you can do a lot, right? And look, we're always looking to buy bigger pieces of land here. Um, you know, it's just the market is crazy now. But I mean, if you can make it, start collecting it. I think the only more important thing than that is probably getting the knowledge, and leaving that knowledge to your children. Um, because we also found out that if you are knowledgeable on how to grow stuff, how to build stuff, you can always find land. There will always be, there's enough land. There was enough land out there. It's just it's priced out of most people's hand, right? And that's, I think it's by design for some reason or another. But no matter what I think, um, I'm saying that there are old people out there with land that you can probably work with, or you can do, um, you know, owner financing on, or something like that. Or if you're creative, um, you can always get more land if you're, or even if in a crisis situation you have a lot of skills, people will seek you out, right? And you'll acquire land then. But you have to have the skills, and you have to have just enough land to be able to train yourself to have skills. So I think that's it. And in the sense, like, look, if you live in an apartment, start growing basil. It doesn't matter. Start growing herbs. We did really good with herbs. Absolutely. I think not just that you save money, you can sell herbs. You can sell rosemary. You get a little dryer. You set something up. We just been basil and rosemary and some other stuff. I mean, do something that excites you, right? Do it on the balcony. That's what my grandmother did all the time. Before we moved back in, we grew chili and some other spicy stuff, right? And you can it, you do it, you do something with it, and it's gonna be a great gift. Probably the first few batches might not be that good, but you'll figure it out. You'll have fun. So start with that. Just start. Don't wait on I'll do it when I'll have land, and on when I'll have land is when the price is gonna come back. And look, the prices can come back, and you can still not afford it, because the price is just a fixation on a number. What really, what we're really up against is the distance, the physical monetary distance between the living standard and the price. The price can halve if the living standard of people also halve. Then it doesn't matter. You can still not afford land, or you can, the price of land can go up double if you have other skills that you can quadruple your net worth. It doesn't matter. Or maybe you're in whatever you're invested in, and that tenfolds. You can now suddenly buy land because it feels cheap for you. So don't get fixated on numbers, on actual numbers. What you're really up against is closing the distance between your living standard and where you want to be. And unfortunately, for many people, hopefully not you and me, but for many people, it seems like fellow men and women, it seems like the living standard is diminishing quite rapidly as the middle class gets smaller and smaller every month. It feels like, and now we're probably at a breaking point. I don't want to, commit. I don't want to do any predictions, but from what the savings rate is, from what the credit is, from what the loans are that people have, it's up. It's up there. It's as worst as probably ever. So you gotta watch out for that. All right. Looks like another super chat from Lance. $2. Thank you very much. The best have been any that can grow from seed. I'm not sure if I understand that. Um, I guess what you grow there. Yeah, some. I'm not sure. This is probably not related to your comment, but one of the farmers who contacted me on buymeacoffee.com, I believe. By the way, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee and a Patreon account, but I'm just not too active. But those are the people who support this channel. That's why I'm still doing it, and because of you commenting, you people. But anyway, he contacted me that he had, I guess, a vision at some point. Um, and I don't want to give too much details. This was a private conversation, but I think we can all learn from it. Was that he ended up making more money selling seed, and he changed his whole business plan. He changed his whole business plan um, because he got this message, right, from up above that he should stop what he's doing and he should do seed. So I'm not sure what to do with that information, but that came back to me from what you mentioned. And look, you can sell seeds as well. It doesn't matter. There's definitely some good ideas that out there for small plots of land. Anyway, I'm just gonna go and read some of the comments now. I think I don't know. Let me see what I wanted to say more. Anyway, so to kind of finish or continue the story, we had to move back and we had to start almost from scratch. I mean, the house was in bad condition. It was from mud brick, right? Some of the other buildings around the house were sinking actually because there was water everywhere. It was very hard. I mean, it was just a lot of manual work too. We never had running water in the house, by the way. We had to grab water from a well. Eventually we did have electricity, even gas at some point if you could afford it. Natural gas, right? Propane. But it was different life, and it didn't matter because we had fun. I probably the most fondest memories as a child are from that place because when the day's done, there's little electricity, there's nothing to do, and we would play cards. I would play cards with my father, just regular old family fun cards, and just gazing at the stars, right? Star Path Academy, the channel, and we would talk, and it was the best days, and you get to experience human kind of connectivity once you deconnect from all the technology and you get to spend time on the land and working with your hands. You will have deeper connections with the people who you are around with. So in one way, it was probably the best thing that can have happened to me. And I'm pretty sure if you raise your children right and you have the right connections, they will also have similar experiences. And make sure that you select the right people who you want gonna spend the rest of your days with. I think the the marketplace for spouses is getting worse and worse. It's just I don't know. I don't know. We were joking with my wife if we had to start all over. I have no idea what would I do. But I mean, you can. You just need to be able to close the physical distance between where you are and what you want to have, right, for your partner, and seek out places where your potential partner is most likely at, right? Because if you're going to the club every night or every Saturday night, then you'll find someone who likes to go to the club every Saturday night. So it's not rocket science, people. Yeah. Anyway, but not just your spouse, right? Not just your friends. The five people who spend most of your time with, you're going to be the average of that. It's probably spent said too many times, but it's true. So, and as you change, you will see that some older connections might not work for you, and you'll need to build new connections, and that's fine as long as you're willing to pay the price for that. All right. So just I wanted to kind of finish that thought, but I'm happy to answer more questions. Thank you for the super chats. Let me read through some comments here. Laura says this came up his her stream, and she's liking what she's hearing. So or he, sorry. Great. Yeah, I'm from Romania. Thank you, Ahmed's wife. Hi, Arpad, watching my 6-year-old grow things in our balcony. It's amazing. She's the green thumb. We got a cucumber and a tomato. Teaching her we don't have a plot right now, but trying to instill values. Exactly. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's what it really comes down to, the knowledge. I think that's probably the most important thing. You need to know about nitrogen, like cucumbers. How will you add calcium to the soil, right? Because some of you probably have really good soil, but some of us don't. And if you cannot just buy bags and bags of dirt from Home Depot or Lowe's if you have a bigger plot of land. So how can you compost, right? You can compost on a balcony, right? What can you do to add nutrients to the ground, right? What about crops that you grow or plants that are companion plants? Like stuff like this makes a world of difference. Irrigation stuff. It's just you can buy a book, you can watch the YouTube, you can do so many things, and you will get so much value. And it's great that you're teaching your 6-year-old. Lorv says yes, LA business are pretty empty. I heard. Yeah, I've lived in LA for about 6 years, probably more, 10 years. I don't even know now. Um, it's a weird place, but every time I visited, went back there, it has been worse and worse. Like just the place where I lived, what, like 12 years ago. You go back there and it's a different place now. It's a totally different place. The homelessness is horrible. And just think about all those poor people living on the streets. And there's reasons why they do it. I'm not saying they're, you know, but it is what it is. And it's just absolutely horrid. Eric likes the subject. Thank you, Eric. Maggie, hi Maggie, thank you for commenting. I have that, but I don't have community. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I think it's probably the hardest part. It's almost probably harder or just as hard as getting acquiring the land. What I found was that a lot of people are willing to teach other people. So if you join, I mean, you can do Facebook groups, meetups, meetup.com, and some other places. I mean, you can learn how to skin a goat. You can just, I mean, you have to find the right groups or prepper groups. You're always gonna have to watch out with uh, real interactions and what you share and what you not what you don't share. But I think you have to do your homework and teach and learn. I think that's the best way to kind of build community, because someone who's willing to teach you, maybe they collect $20 from everyone or something so they can pay for the tools or something like that, or you willing to teach them. I think a relationship based on that is going to last longer. And commerce, to be honest, if you have farmers or neighbors or homesteaders, um, do commerce, just trade, even if you don't necessarily need the product. If you establish that relationship, that can go a long, long way when the time comes due. So Lance, eighth of an acre in residential neighborhood, but it's all in a hillside. But if I have been terracing and gardening since 22, oh, good job for you. Yeah. So Lance is living on an eighth of an acre in a residential neighborhood. Residential neighborhoods are not as good, right? But sometimes the city or even HOAs, if hopefully you don't have an HOA, but they allow usually up to six chickens if you don't have a rooster or something like that. And I don't think anybody coming to count your chickens. But yeah, you can. I mean, hmm, vertical gardening is something, but terracing is really good. If you have a hillside, then think about um, root cellars, right? Think about root cellars. That's a really good value right there. Hmm, hillside. You definitely have to do dense stuff. You can't just make an orchard there. There was this book on Amazon. I don't quite know which one, which was specifically how to plan out. I think it was still 2 acres. Um, but how can you make most of it? I don't know. I'm not gonna say any book names, and then maybe if I'll look it up, I'll put it in the comment section somewhere to help you. Lordif says he left the city 1 year ago. Johnny's introducing me that about I'm usually talk about my experience living in communist Romania and hyperinflation afterwards. Yeah, mostly hyperinflation afterwards. I was very young when communism fell. I have a lot of good memories, but much of it comes from the experience of my father, my mother, and my uh, grandparents. Right. So Eric says that his wife is a super gardener in our family while I work. We have replaced about 80%. Wow, that's great. Of all the food needs with a huge garden. Also chickens, rabbits. Yeah, rabbits can work really well too. I'm not. I'm not. I just don't know much about them. But my cousin, um, he loves his rabbits, so we get to eat rabbit from now and then. All right. Looks like more conversation. If you have a question for me, type out all caps question, or at sign Start Path Academy. That way I can just grab that more easily. Or of course the super chat always helps, but looks like that the comment section is having a good conversation about what to do stuff. So that's really good. All right. Grow calories, potatoes, sweet potatoes, flour, corn, and dry beans, and squash. I think it's very good to have the knowledge of that. I think it's essential that you know how to grow potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, and beans. But right now, I think it's still much, much easier to buy that than grow it. I'm saying grow it. I mean, if you have enough land, no problem, grow it. But if you don't have too much land, maybe you want to work on that land to learn stuff and still buy stuff that is still relatively cheap, right? So you gotta really, really make a plan how to do that. But you can also roll it. I mean, just grow something else every year and kind of learn about that. So I agree with Eric. You have to think about calories. You have to think about what you can actually survive on, right? You won't be able to survive if the only thing you grow is peppers or something like that, right? So you have to think about calorie values. But you can there's stuff that you can store easily, things that God has made in a way that you can store easily. And usually it's seeds, right? Seeds store easily. You can store meat, but that wasn't meant for storage unless you know how to smoke it, you cure it, and or you have a generator and a freezer or something like that. Generator plus a freezer, not just the freezer, and ideally solar generator, or something that you can replace if, or maybe you have two generators. That's the rule. You have to have two of everything, whether that's firearm, whether that's generator, whether that's minimum two of everything per person. Maybe not generators. Okay, and the same items too. The same items, not different models, so you can fix it. Like one thing that we had very common in Romania was that um, as the supply chain broke down, if you had a car, you bought someone else's bad car who had maybe an issue with the engine, but you bought the car anyway for parts. So basically, you had two of the same car, and then you would get the pieces from this as this was breaking down, and you would fix it, or you would pay someone with potatoes to fix it. And that's basically what my father-in-law did. He fixed cars for people. All right. There was a family in California that grew 300, what? 3,000 plus pounds of produce in a year on 1/8 acre lot. Okay, well, I need to know more about that. But see, this is a really good community. I mean, now you can Google that and probably get somewhere. It's county government not consider city limits, even though I live in a residential neighborhood, not raising. So raising animals is allowed. The next horses, chickens, goats, cows, donkeys. You cannot go wrong with chickens. It was used as currency for us, and I'm serious. It was when everything broke down, you paid for, especially like health related stuff. For some reason, you just paid with chickens. Your doctor visit, one chicken. You went somewhere else, you needed medicine, one chicken, or half a chicken, right? In freeze. It was basically currency for us. I remember being in the main hospital, the municipal hospital, right? The county hospital. I think it was level four, five, right? It was a huge communist building. I think level seven was the maternity. Anyway, we went there a lot. And you had to bring your own gauze, and you had to bring your own everything, because I mean the supply chain broke after hyperinflation. So you had to basically get everything from the outside, bring it with you. God forbid if you had to stay there for a couple of days. There was no food, no nothing. Your family. I remember us visiting my aunt, and bringing chicken soup and whatnot into the building, and it's just not too sanitary. But hey, it's chicken soup. So yeah, we had to bring her food all the time after her operation and everything. And we paid with chicken. We paid, it was a live chicken. I remember us sitting on the benches, on waiting on the long, long corridors, and people with live chicken in the bag. Right, you could hear them, pok, pok, pok. And that was life for me. I thought that was normal. I thought that was normal for a very long time. That was life for me. So you cannot go wrong with chickens. But I mean, if you know your other stuff, then grow other stuff. So that's good. I think, yeah, good for you, Lance, that you can do that. Ahmad's wife says, Arpad, we took a chance, bought some wetlands, about half wetlands. I think having three water sources is situational idea in a survival. Yeah, idea. What do you think about wetlands? I don't know much about wetlands, to be honest, but I know about water source and how important that was. It was super important. So basically, we had two places where we lived. We lived in the city, and then we lived in the town. In the town, our water source was not potable. We could not drink that. I was just the physical situation was not that good, because we had shallow wells, and it was all this water coming from the hill, and it was a lot of arid land, or arable land. It was just people were still using fertilizer, right? And yeah, I have to tell about the story about fertilizer, man. So anyway, the water quality was not good. We had two shallow wells. None of them were potable, but we could use it for irrigation. It was okay. It was okay to irrigate, um, but it was not potable. However, not too far from us, a neighbor's house had a good water source, just because they were on a different slope or something. So we had an agreement that we would just go get water from there. And actually in Romania, but that especially in Hungarian small towns, or German small towns in Transylvania, it was custom that you would put your well right where your fence is. So that was so because you would want to share your water with your neighbors or anyone who's passing by. It was a custom that you put your well where your fence is. So anyone who would be walking near your house could stop and get water from you. It was just that was custom from the 1400s or something like that, and that was That's how we rolled in small towns, right? You didn't fear about somebody poisoning you or grabbing too much water. It was courtesy that you would share your water because that's coming from God. So, but it was very important. It was very important, and we were lucky to have good neighbors. And in the city, um, we never had big issues with water in the sense that water's like it was being shut off all the time. So, by the way, everything related to government got shut down, and water treatment and sewer, and it was just horrible. However, we had water source. We had to go probably about 3, 4 miles, maybe 3, 4 miles, and we would just with bicycles. We could always just get enough water because we had potable water sources. Five, I think about five in the city, where we would stand in line and we would just get it from there. And sometimes as kids, that was our job to get 15, 3 times 15 liters of water. Um, that was the minimum. So with bikes and a little carriage or something, what you call that, you can pull behind your bike, we would get the water. Yeah, please. Thank you, Eric, for mentioning. Please give Arpad thumbs up. So please do that. Thank you. Yeah, I guess Maggie says that she grew stuff when she was in an apartment. Better start doing something. If I had to, she says, I could grow in the abandoned houses. Well, one thing we did was that I mean, we did grew stuff on balconies, spicy pepper, anything that we could sell. If you could can it or you could add value to it, you could sell to your neighbors, or something that was more exotic that we didn't have or not everyone had. My cousin was big into various types of spicy peppers that not everyone had the seeds for or grew. So that was pretty good. But also, a lot of people grew or tried to grow something next or in between the huge communist blocks or even on top of the blocks, which are these 10-story buildings usually. And they tried that to with some degree. There's definitely success, but I think the value, if added value, if you can do some added value to it, if you can smoke it. We stored, we had, like, our balcony was made in a way with there was my this it's I guess it originally was like a tool cabinet or whatever that my father then turned it into something where we could store dried meat, right? And and we would do that, and I not necessarily sell it, but definitely trade it. And just four, not no, two stories below us, a neighbor was making wine on the balcony. And I have a funny story about that because I don't know what he did, but probably the wine over fermented and it blew out, and the wine was getting just it was pouring down. It was pouring down. He lived on, I think, the fourth level of the apartment building, and they have these tubes where rainwater could be flowing out. So that was filled with wine, and the wine, or what's supposed to be wine, eventually was just pouring down or on the side of the building. So 2 stories down again, or 1 story down, the neighbor was putting a bucket out to catch the wine that was pouring down. And he had the courtesy with that he caught like a 5 gallon bucket of wine or whatever, and he brought it up. Hey, your neighbor, this is yours. And I think they drank it, and that was life. Yeah, true story. I had to take. If I wish I could have an interview with the guy. He doesn't speak English, but I would translate there, or we could do a translation. But there were stories like this all the time. Yeah. Crop Duster says that hey, he's glad to see that we're live. Yes, we are. We are growing sweet potatoes in Montana. I want to do more sweet potatoes. I think it's gonna be super essential. Yeah, I need to get into sweet potatoes more. The knowledge for it, I think it can be essential. And it's easier than potatoes if you live in the right climate and you can just grow more. And many people just cannot identify sweet potatoes above the ground, so it's somewhat safer from, you know. All right, let me see if there are any questions, and we're gonna probably stop the stream, not in maybe 5-10 minutes. If you have questions, just type out all capital question and then say your question. Yep, chicken soup is good for your health, Maggie, for sure. That's what we give our children when they get the cough. And I mean, that's another thing that you have to think about is having your own sort of pharmacy, in the sense of know about what to grow, like the importance of onions, the importance of eating raw onions, eating garlic raw, what to do with garlic. I mean, you can treat so many stuff with honey, garlic, and some herbs. It's just a lot. And I mean, if you cannot grow or you cannot get it, you can always just get the oil, right? But absolutely essential. Yeah, maybe if you live in an apartment, that's actually a really good idea to get your skills up with how to treat um, diseases with natural remedies. That was super useful. Ahmed's wife says that's a beautiful custom. Regarding the wells, this is also in the Middle East. Creating wells are well known for charity. Those building wells have charity deeds after that. Yeah, it was it was a custom. It still is today, but however, now you can see that maybe that has the well is either has an inner wall. Basically, the fence is now either going this way around and they just make it a public well, or going that way around and they just make it a private well. It used to be that the fence was right on the well and you could just the circle of the well would be divided in two, and from any side you could grab water. But I think things have changed. How long before chaos erupts? Any predictions? I mean, the thing is that maybe chaos never erupts. Isn't that like probably the worst case scenario? That this just slow, degrading pace of ever worsening living conditions, ever worsening tools, quality of life, quality of tools, quality of everything, because that's a slow boiling of the frog. People get used to it, right? And chaos never erupts. Think about how many countries went fallen into socialism or communism that way throughout history, right? Or usually, of course, there's a war or something else that kind of is used, and then it's brought into as a solution, right? But there's no guarantee that chaos erupts. I mean, in the sense of Mad Max scenario. There's already chaos. Look at the streets of Los Angeles. Look at the streets of some of these California cities. People like all the time. There's a YouTube video or a short somewhere where uh, a lady in her 30s crying about the homeless people moving in on her street, now living in RVs. And she's disillusioned in the sense she thinks that she can go up there and talk with the people. Hey, move. There's like, it used to be this uppity neighborhood, but then she just, right? She brought herself into this to some degree, right? And now with crimes not being punished, I mean, we never had this back then. I mean, the community was different. Just the moral standards of people in the 70s, 80s, even 90s to some degree, it was totally different. But not just, oh, because it's a small town in Eastern Europe. I mean, small town everywhere, even today is better, but probably the moral standard of living, how you live, how you treat other people was different even in the streets of Los Angeles in the 70s, right? So chaos is here. Chaos is here. If you look at some places, I mean, look at uh, if you stop someone stealing from Home Depot, you get sued. I mean, if that's not chaos, then what it is chaos. So it's already here. It's just if we would have bread lines now and we would not have electronic EBTs or whatever they're called, we would have the longest bread lines ever in recorded human history. If you would still have to stand in line for food, the line would be miles and miles long every day. Think about that. You just don't see it because it's electronic lines. But that's what it is. Chaos is here. I'm sorry if probably this is not the answer you're looking for, but what are we looking for? What are we looking for? Right? I think eventually people will get fed up, but um, that doesn't mean that the solution will be good. Yeah. Invest in maps with nearby waters first. That's a really good idea, especially depending on the where you live. I mean, um, to be honest, if you can live, I don't know, like this always this historically speaking, if you live in a land where really there's not much to take over, you're probably sometimes safe in the sense of if you live in a harsh enough condition and you're accommodated to that, you don't have to worry about other people taking away from you because usually the people who take that away from you are not gonna put in the hard work necessary to live in that condition. So if you have a well secretly in the desert somewhere, right, and then Arizona, Nevada, whatever, you might be actually really safe. So I'm saying this as if we had this discussion with a gentleman from Argentina, right, and he was saying that this he has knowledge about the Argentinian collapse, right, and how he made it out from there, and about the importance of silver. We had a three parts interview. I can see that's a good idea to get him on again. I really liked what he had to share, but basically, he wanted to kind of kill off this illusion of if you alone can bug out somewhere and you can protect that place, um, but it's a really good place that other people want. It's not a good idea to be there alone, um, or in the sense of isolated from a bigger community. Sometimes, and this is probably, I made this up, or I don't know if you can ever find this anywhere, but I guess so. It's my quote or whoever made it up. Is that a tree can best hide in a forest? So that doesn't mean that you have to be right one of them, but as long as you can blend in, um, you're gonna probably do okay. So another, I mean, just water source, of course, it's really good idea. So what she suggested, but if you've seen enough, if you've seen enough uh, National Geographic documentaries, you'll see that the predators hunt at the watering hole. So not regarded to the water she was saying, but you got to watch out where you bug out and what you have, right? So that's probably a different conversation though. Crop Duster says Arpad, absolutely, it's hidden from you view. Sorry, that's probably a response. I'm not sure what you were mentioning regarding what you were saying. The UK has a lower per capita wealth than our poor state of Mississippi in the US. Wait a second. I have to double check that. But Mark Yellowcake, what a nice name. The UK has a lower per capita wealth than our poorest state of Mississippi in the US. I can actually somewhat believe that because if you take a look at some of these Western European countries that so many of you like, not much residual income they have because everything goes towards taxes to either fund the NH, whatever they call their healthcare, or the bus systems, to run the train systems and all of that stuff. And that was probably okay somewhat when they first started up, that okay, we'll just build these systems for you, but then the systems never get updated. Now the quality of people who live in the UK is totally different than 50 years ago. So suddenly, you cannot keep the systems up, and but you're still paying the same, or if not more, amount per wealth of your own income, um, into that. So it was a promise, a big fat promise that was a trap. Yep. All right. The UK has healthcare and infrastructure. It does. It still does for sure. Somewhat. I think it's gonna get worse and worse, to be honest. Um, it's just infrastructure will break down. We had free healthcare in communist Romania, right? It's just you never got to the end of the line if you were using the free healthcare. Eventually, it will get so bad that you'll have to show up with an envelope, or if without an envelope, then with chocolates and some chicken or something to get actually treated. And then what happens is the free market provides you a different solution. So then you have the free healthcare from the government, and where you could wait 8, 9 months for a CAT scan. Right, it's still there. This happened not so long ago with the free healthcare in Romania. So some relatives of mine, or you can just go the private route where you pay and you get it done as just like any normal people could get it done. But now you're actually paid for it twice. You paid for it once with your taxes deducted, but you cannot use that system, and you still have to use the private system, which is sort of parallel to it. And that's more and more what's going to happen. Either that private system is going to be only like in a total disaster capitalist way being used against the people, in the sense of further exploiting the people, or you just do away with everything and you go solve it on your own somehow. But with the way things are going, I don't see how the system will get better. It's just the quality of the people who built it, who it was built for, and the quality of the current people. So that's it. Scoville 7. I'm getting the impression the cost of living situation is hitting the UK even harder than the US, but I could be wrong about that. That's my perception as well, but the US is almost like many different small countries. So maybe in average that's true, but I'm pretty sure uh, in some cases, in some towns, in some states, the US is doing very poorly, very, very poorly. And as Maggie stated, at least the UK being just one country and being able to print its own money, it can paper it over and still have some infrastructure built. So they can make inflation, but use that inflation to do paving, right? Just like how communist China can do ghost cities, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what is it good for or not. You have to keep the plebs, the people, occupied. If not, they will revolt, right? If you cannot give them something to do, no matter what it is, whether that's porn in the US, right, or work in China, you have to keep them occupied, or there's circus and bread in between, right? Netflix for you. So yeah, it's just that. Yeah, the UK has runaway immigration problem. That's what it definitely feels like. Um, I mean, yeah, I just don't even want to talk too much about that, but um, it just, you're replacing old workforce for new workforce who's gonna work cheaper for a couple of years because they're still getting started. But by that time, they would be building wealth and they would be providing actual value to their families and so on, and building, they becoming middle class. You're importing more. It's just like if you would be a company and you would be hiring always the fresh new people just to, because you can get away with hiring them as interns, right? Not necessarily giving them any benefits. It's just what it is. It's almost like the worst of two worlds. It's the worst of predatory capitalism merged together with the worst aspects of communism or socialism. And you get the worst and you put it together and you kind of empty the whole country out. Um, yeah. There's another problem, though. There's another problem which I don't want to talk about too much. But basically, it's people having no loyalty to anything and anyone from up down, right? In the sense of people used to be proud of their hometown, right, or the town they lived in, or the buildings that they had, right? With this globalized infrastructure and architecture, I wanted to say this globalized architecture. It doesn't matter if you're in um, Singapore or in the US city. It doesn't matter. It's all just glass and the same materials, almost the same style, either brutalist or some modern crap. You have no affinity to the place. Why would you keep it up? Um it's just driven off labor. You're always searching for the next opportunity that gives you it. It all provides this framework of the current rent to live mentality, right? So I think it's more than that. It's more than it's cultural first and foremost. The people who are dictating the culture are dictating the downstream politics of that. It all stems from culture, and culture comes from higher aspirations of humans. Lance Corporal Veteran asks how to make. I did say put question. I happened to catch this question. How to make money is something that benefits from inflation. So there's a couple of ways how you can do it, right? Um, One thing is that you know that the price of things will go up with inflation. So the more you can afford now, is the better for you, right? So very like there are a couple of ways how to do that. If I can buy now something, whatever it is, I know that I would be using for the X amount of years. I can stock up on it. It's something that doesn't go bad, right? My father came up with the idea with crystallized sugar. We had a sugar factory not so distant from us, so instead of saving cash, we would know that we could always use sugar. We learned about how to store white crystal sugar. It won't work with brown sugar, or even though if it's healthy or not. You can't store that very well. But if you can store sugar and you know you're gonna need sugar, or you know you can sell sugar, then we just bought tons of sugar and we would have a place where we store that. We still have some of that sugar, by the way. I have to take a picture of it and show it to you guys. But that was the genius idea. So we would just buy sugar, we would buy more. Now, that could be also, I'm not giving stock advice or trading advice or commodity trading advice, God forbid. But if you have an asset or something that you know you have more than you yourself would ever need in your life, let's say if that would be if you could buy on the stock market somewhere, um, let's say gasoline. You know how much gasoline you consume per week. You know how much week in a year. You know how much years you want to, consume gasoline. And then if you have more than that, then any price increase to gasoline helps you. It's as easy as that, right? If I have or if I own the stock equivalent, if I mean that's why I don't want to give stock advice, but there's like commodities that you can buy, whether that's corn, wheat, and or anything else. If I have more wheat, if I own more wheat than I would ever consume in my lifetime, the wheat price increase helps me. It makes me richer. That's how the ultra wealthy get rich. Double that with the next thing, right? So they own assets that appreciate in value, right? Or commodities. And the house is an asset because it's being built from the copper wire, right? The lumber and the in it, right? The plaster, everything is just packaged commodities, right? That's a house. So it's good to have, but you have to watch out how and when you buy it, when you sell it. So like you have to watch out for fluctuations, whatever you're buying. So don't go crazy on it. But the other thing is you can short the currency. You can basically short means that I borrow from you to sell it and repurchase it in the future. So I mean, I don't know if you guys or who knows about most I'm thinking most people watching, all the 42 people watching this show know what shorting is. But basically shorting is if I can borrow the asset from you and I can promise that I'm gonna give exact amount same of asset. This is a knife, by the way. Um, give this asset back to you in 2 years, and maybe I have to pay for you a little bit, right? That's your commission. I borrow the asset, not the money, the asset from you, and I sell it immediately into the market, right? And the asset goes down in value, and 2 years pass. I repurchase the asset, give it back to you, and basically the downward trend in the market, the price difference I net because I sold it here, right? It went down in value. I repurchased it for less amount and then I give it back. That's shorting. That's shorting an asset. But you can short the currency. You can short the currency if you know, and I'm not making predictions. If you can short the currency is the best way to make gains on inflation, right? And you can do that. You can, like, the easiest short is a mortgage, right? If I borrow not the thing, but I borrow the currency, but let's just say the currency now, US dollar, is the thing that I borrow, right? And I promise the currency loses value, right? And I promise to give that back to you in the future, knowing at a fixed price. It won't work if they can change the cost of the currency. If I know, that's why I told, like, I was big into real estate when you could borrow for 2%, right? It doesn't matter. Then now not so much because the cost of borrowing currency is too much. But that's what you're doing, right? So you're shorting the currency with a mortgage, your long-term mortgage. Now you have to watch out what you do with it, right? Because at some point you have to sell it and give it back. So as soon as you think there's a drop big enough in the currency, then you sell the currency, grab back the currency basically, rebuy the currency, sell the house, rebuy the currency, and give it back, and you net the difference. So going into debt. Now, if you can combine the two, if you can short the currency and the difference, you put it into real assets. That's how you get the ultra wealthy making money, right? And they can buy more and more assets because their credit worthiness is high in the sky, and you don't have to pay taxes. All the taxes or socialism you're trying to push won't work on this because technically no money was made. They only borrowed it. So money gets borrowed into existence. If you borrow money, right, you don't have to pay taxes on borrowed money because eventually you'll have to pay it back, right? But if its trend never stops, you don't have to ever pay it back. You can always just be in this loop until you break the whole freaking economy and buy up all the farmland in the US, like some of our really wealthy friends, and you exit before the crash that you orchestrated, and the rest of us can live in the 15-minute cities. So these are two ways, right? These are two ways that, yeah, how you can do. Let me see some other questions. I hope that answered it. And then, of course, the third one would be can't see any capital questions. The third one would be knowing what that inflation will break, right? What services are going to totally break during inflation and acquire them after they break? Because eventually, inflation, once everything has been broken, um, then you can acquire the assets that have been broken. So one thing that I mentioned like 3 years ago, whenever I started the channel, how to make money or how to get rich during hyperinflation, was that some real estate, especially commercial real estate in cities, will have no value at all. No value at all. Um, and you can buy that up really cheap once inflation has messed up the economy completely. But the big commercial real estate, you can always find good people who are willing to do work, and they will need the small commercial real estate because as soon as the big systems fail, people, hopefully like you and me, unless the AI takes over and they solve it for us, we'll need to solve problems. We'll need to solve problems, and we will need places where where we need to produce stuff. So it will just come back. Like the biggest gains that we made, right, during hyperinflation in Romania was acquiring um, storage place and sort of not real commercial real estate, but that would be like the who really got rich was who got commercial real estate after hyperinflation completely wiped out the economy, because just like the big boys cannot deal with hyperinflation. The big companies. It's how you wipe out, not the globalist companies who orchestrate it, right? I'm saying the big companies, 100-year-old companies who was able to navigate through ups and downs won't be able to navigate through hyperinflation. Why? Because by the time they sell their product, they cannot make up the like if I produce something and I know what was the cost to producing it, and I ask for a 50% profit margin and I sell it maybe 100%. By the time I sell it, hyperinflation has screwed the company over, because even for double the price, you cannot remake the same thing. Now you need more. How do you price things in this market? Either you stop completely and stop producing it, or you're producing it always at a loss, right? And what are you selling that people need so much that they have to buy even during hyperinflation? If it's not food or energy, forget about it. All right. More questions. Do you do that in the forex? I don't do forex at all, or I'm pretty much out of the markets as well. But I don't like too much leverage that I have no. Um, yeah, the I don't like leverage on stuff that I don't control or have no control over. It's just a ticker. It's just a computer screen. It's You have no control over that. It's a bet. Look. I need to be able to hold things for such a long time that I don't care what the price is tomorrow. So that's why I don't trade or do forex stuff. Either it's physical or something very close to physical, or backed by something physical. And I don't mind holding it because I know I'm just gonna use the same amount during my lifetime anyway. So if going back to the sugar price, right? If I buy all the sugar that I will ever consume, and hopefully you're consuming less and less sugar. I'm just giving this here as an example. Um, Especially white sugar. So anyway, or crystallized white sugar. So if you buy it at a certain price and you made the wrong bet, right? And sugar price is decreasing, not increasing, because hyperinflation haven't kicked in yet. What did you do? You didn't do anything special. You just locked it in at this price. You don't have to sell it while it's going down. You can just buy new sugar from the store, and this is your reserve. It doesn't matter. But what you need to be able to hold this until the sugar price goes up again. So basically, you lock it in at price, and then you look at the store price. Is it cheaper than what I bought? Okay, I'm just gonna buy it from the store. Assume that. Eventually, hyperinflation, no hyperinflation, money printing will happen. Eventually, that will be over, and then you're gonna buy it. Now, sugar's not the best idea, but if you go with some metals that you never have to sell, it doesn't matter. James West, thank you for all the comments, James. All the videos and under everything. Let's see, what is this about? A burned out crack house is $2 million in San Francisco. How do you value that in inflation? Take it to the countryside for a better standard of living. I mean, I have no idea how they're still thinking that they will get $2 million. I know there's like Toronto and Canada and some other places where some of these high value localized markets have been used for money laundering by Chinese individuals and Russian individuals, right? Because you can. It used to be prior Bitcoin, right? You could move big amounts of money with unused real estate. It could be anything, but if it's real estate for some reason, it's okay now. But modern art is how they wash money most of the times. If you have some crap that you can buy and you need to move money and I need to move money, all we need to do is agree on a price. And that crap, $2 million, okay. And the Chinese individual citizen needs to move money out of China, he could invest in this crap, right? He could then sell it to the next Chinese individual in China, and he could move the money out, and he can move the money out, right? Or you can make a huge loan against that. Now put that in the stock market, then you're washing money. So it's like, I don't know. I know that's some part of it, right? Modern art is absolutely crap, in my opinion. I'm sorry if you're a modern art fan, but it's totally okay for us to have different opinions. But the same with um, what they were used to be called, these tokens or whatever that represented some emoji on a crypto network. You can just move a lot of money. It doesn't matter. It's just a fixed price that we all in the club agree that we're roughly gonna sell and buy at that same price, and we just move money around. So that's one part, but I don't think that's the case. It has to be lunacy. It's just people saying if that crap sold for $2 million, mine is worth 3 million. But you have to watch out how long it was on the market. I don't know if it's selling. So, but what would you do with that? Absolutely, absolutely. Hand the bag to the next guy. Let him hold it and do something that's actually worth. You can produce something on it, right? Whether that's investment real estate, if you can, I don't know, in this market, if you can still make the numbers work, although this would be not such, I don't know, not giving advice here, but ideally something that you can add value with your own hard labor or some other people's hired hard labor. That's what definitely I would do. Countryside. Inflation making quality of garden tools go down. It is. It is. Quality of everything. Now I just connected up our conversation about the hose and the water, the gardening, the garden watering hose and the divider. I bought a divider to be able to put like a long hose to one of these herb gardens that we have, and the the hose was just it completely detached. Like the thing stood on, but the hose came out of the socket on the first pull. It was infuriating because I specifically read it's made in the US, right? Okay, I'm supporting US. It was like a $78 item, right, for a freaking garden hose. It's not like I'm buying the cheapest one. And then this happens, and then later on, the divider with a ball, with the two balls that you can shut off the wall valves or whatever, and the first piece comes off. I think there's just the same thing how inflation makes the packaging smaller if they want to sell it at the same price, so you don't feel the inflation, but it's shrinkflation, making the package of rice smaller at the same price, so you don't feel it. I think the same goes either with the materials that go into the tools, either the people who produce it, right, are being let off and unqualified work being hired, or getting cheap on quality management. And this infuriates me. I have a degree in quality systems. When I see anything like this, anything low quality, it's just I have this inner anger that I cannot describe. That is the person who's producing it not using his own damn item? How does he not know how bad this is? It's infuriating. So I don't know, but it's a sign. It's a sign to whoever asked when is the collapse happening. It's here. You can see it on the products that are being produced. May that even be people, the quality of the people who produce the next generation. Am I sounding too old? I don't know, but this is where we are. The Kali Yuga, or whatever it's called. Is silver gold a good commodity to buy right now? Don't answer investment questions, advice, or anything like that. Um, so I don't know. It might be a really bad thing for you to buy if you cannot hold it. If you don't have no cash reserves, it could be the worst deal that you do, because as soon as but generally speaking, historically speaking, hyperinflationally speaking, it's one of the best things that one could do. But it could be the worst thing that you do. So there's no investment advice here. But once you have everything else, um, it's something that you can hold indefinitely. It's the best sugar. It's the best sugar example. Um, but it's not an investment. It's not an investment. It's like a fire extinguisher. You do not get to use it unless there's a fire. And if there's a fire, that means you better have it. You goddamn better have it. So it's something like that. And looks like there's gonna be a fire. So I don't know. But you have to have it. Yeah, I mean, historically speaking, going back not too far ago, right? When people were still somewhat sane, they would say 5 to 10%, 5 to 10% of your net investments should go. I'm not saying that, I'm not giving advice, right? But people would say that you have to have 10% of your asset allocation in gold or silver, primarily gold. That's what they used to say, right? Because that's more of a monetary metal. Silver is monetary plus industrial metal. So unless you really care about monetary events, yeah, as long as you have 5 or 10% of your total net worth in gold, when everything else goes to crap, because everything else goes to crap, everybody will rush into gold, and your 10% of gold that what you have will cover all the rest that you have lost. Right. So that's usually because it tenfolds, it minimum tenfolds during high crisis events. If you take a look at the 70s, the Iran government fell, then I think I'm having my dates right. But if you look at the global, or the oil shock happened, wars and all of that stuff, like if you look at global financial, but definitely political calamities happening, that's when it shoots up. That's when it shoots up. And the way I put it, when the faith in the currency and the government that produces the currency is lost. First, usually the government, the faith in government is lost, then the faith in currency is lost. And it goes usually that direction. Because even if you swap the top guy out of the pyramid who runs the government, you still think money's money, right? It's a piece of paper. You have been using it all your life to buy bread, right? So you still have some faith in a global currency. But eventually, when that goes, the Exeter pyramid, and you can Google what the Exeter pyramid is, right? From um, financial assets down to stocks and down to bonds, down to cash and down to gold, um, from unreal stuff, man made, man thought up, unreal stuff that we trade all day, right? Because we think it represents a stock in a company. It's all just made up. A company is a piece of paper, right? If you really think about it, and a bunch of people agreeing to work together, a corporation, that's a different thing. But a company of people, right? How can you issue stock? Well, we made it up. right? It's nothing real. It's just something that we made up. This is how we're gonna manage companies and rule lives and and that sort of stuff. It's worth something as long as the agreement is there. But once everything fails, it all fails back to what you can hold, right? And that's usually when everything else fails. It's just bullets and cartridges, whatever. To be tell you the truth. So I hope you invest in lead. Yeah, Mark Yellow. Okay, thank you. I won't buy the vinyl hose anymore. I bought eventually. Whoever was telling me this, thank you very much. I bought the rubber hose, like complete rubber, and Continental made it. So that's now working. I had to buy two because it was long enough, but so far so good. It's working. Yes, Maggie, it's insurance. So precious metals are not investment, but it's insurance on the rest of your investment. Thank you. James West puts it insurance for the next generation, gold and silver. I do think that these metals are more an intergenerational thing. I just like how you plant the trees for the next generation, right? You plant, you're an optimist person if you plant walnut trees because most likely you won't get to see it fully grown and enjoy it, but your your kids will be able to sit in the shade of that tree eventually. So I think that's how it is. Like you really hope you never have to use it, or maybe ideally it was not a good investment for you, gold or silver. But if it was a really good one. The issue is, I think, even more important is that what the values you instill into your children. I think that's more worth way more than gold and silver. So if you're not buying gold and silver for some reason, there's still better things out there that will outlast all of your investments, which are your children and the values you instill in them. So homeschooling is way more important than gold and silver. So as long as you can do that, you're fine. Because how many generations? Though usually the fifth generation or the fourth generation squanders it away anyway. So the first one, right? The second one builds it. The first one struggles, second one builds it, third one enjoys it, fourth one forgets how it was done, and the fifth one doesn't even. I mean, if you take a look at um, the political spectrum, some of the weird ideologies for the future are being pushed from those who were brought up with a silver spoon in hand, right? So, not from the people who actually struggle. They're too busy with working and providing. So I think a little bit of struggle is good. As if you make it in life, do donate, but use use the buy me a coffee link to donate. But I'm saying like think about how ways how you can raise your children how you were raised so they have the same value, because if you flatter them or you spoil them with stuff you never had, they're not going to have the same value system. If you want them to have the same value system that you had, you have to raise them the way. So sometimes we kind of almost like fake things for the kids, so they have to budget more or think about it more, just as if we would not be able to buy it. So they get that value system that hey, you, things don't plop into your hand, right? You either work for it, you either do something for it, or you trade for it. There's no free lunches, because I never had a free lunch. And if I give them that, of course not food wise, right? Keep them well fed, healthy on organic stuff. But I'm saying like the general stuff, right? The stuff that other parents I see give to their kids, which is mostly useless crap, right? That they wanted when they were children, right? That's why Star Wars and some of these brands or whatever are making tons of money, because the fans have grown up now and they're buying the crap for their children who are probably not as interested as they were, right? So always think about that. Don't do things, do time, spend time with your children. Most likely that's what they will value, right? Not the stuff. Instead of going working too much, your fingers right to the bone, whether that's typing in somewhere remotely or working somewhere, just to be able to afford more crap, lose the crap, live the minimalist lifestyle. Look at all the pictures I have. And I'm not, the garage is not this empty, I can tell you that, but whatever. Tools. Anyway, um, just don't do that. Skip that part and directly spend your time with your children. I mean, there's a reason why I don't do live streams only late at night when everyone else is asleep, right? Because I'm not losing time with them. So, have to work tomorrow morning. Don't we all? Good night, Hodgepodge. The experimental. These are really good names, by the way. I'm sorry if I missed your questions. You really need to have we need to have a standard how to answer questions in order. Or adults buy child toys for themselves these days. Oh, that's the worst. Absolutely. Like, oh, jeez. Look, if you buy one small thing to make your inner child happy for 20 bucks or $5 and that's it, that's your piece, a memorabilia that you always wanted, and maybe you buy a picture or a poster and then you some, I don't know, but man children carry it away, right? That's the problem, right? So I mean, where does this come from? There has to be some deep psychological meanings. I probably need to reread Jung or someone, um, why this happens. But it's mostly males who are checking out of society. So it's not like, look, anyone who I'm talking about, I sometimes just feel for them. It frustrates me, but I'm never not angry with these people. It's just I wish them better, from my standpoint of view. Maybe they're really more happier than me. Who knows? But like the one thing that you can invest in if you want to do anything is your physical health, because physical health and mental health, your mental body projects into the physical body, and that's what it is. So I think it's interlinked. Uh, right? And you, if you work on one, the other will follow, or if you work on the other will follow. But it's usually much easier to just to work on your physical body, lifting weights, buy weights, buy a gym membership, go work in the garden until you're sweating in the hot sun, and hard work will put you in your right place of mind. I don't know. Cycles. Ahmed's wife says, Arpa, that's a great idea. The kids really don't know what the words how to value anything. I spoiled my oldest son accidentally. I didn't realize it harmed him. Well, I'm pretty sure you can undo any harm, right? As a loving mother. Um, because here's the what do they call it? White pill. Here's the white pill. Your children, when they grow up to the age where you are right now, they will copy you from right now. So you'll have this opportunity. They will have this opportunity as long as you connect with them on a regular basis, and you don't just send them off to college to hundreds and thousands of miles from yourself, and you never reconnect with them, which is your fault, right? Unless you do that something stupid like that, then what will happen is the mindset they will have when they are 40 or 30 will be the same mindset that you had at 30 or 40, right? And that's like, I mean, my mindset now is what my father's mindset was when he was relatively my age, right? And that's true. So I mean, that's what they say, like young people are liberals and old people are conservatives. Well, by the time they grow old, they will be conservatives, right? Or the whole window have shifted so one direction that they will be counted as conservatives in the future. So don't worry about it too much. Just stay connected and spend time with them. And yeah, don't spoil them too much. That's my advice, and don't take advice from me because I'm not giving advice. Buy more pop action figures. Yeah, but as long as they come with dumbbells or or kettlebells that then you can lift, just have to. Maggie says that she's lucky that married a smart guy that knows how to do things, and his family lives in a rural area where they garden. Yeah, it's you gotta marry right. That's probably your whoever was saying, I can't remember. Oh, maybe I can't remember, but there was this idea of how billionaires cannot get good wives for themselves. I mean, that speaks to them as well. Maybe they're not good people because usually you just find yourself in the other gender or the exact opposite of yourself in the other gender. Um, right. So it's a reflection on you. But I think the biggest measure of you as a man is what spouse you can attract, and as a woman as well. I think being the most important decision of your life is going to be that, right? Unless you're right, unless you're subscribed to the idea that you should remarry every 2 years or never have a long commitment, then there's probably no value system how I could measure you. But like, you measure people by their friends and by their spouses, and then that way you will know who they are, right? So, um, Maggie, be proud of yourself that you picked them right. uh, that's what I would say. All right, I think that's it for tonight. Unless you want to have more questions or more fun comments. It's getting late, and I bet James has still some aluminum to melt tomorrow, right? So Crop Duster says, "Love the live stream. So happy I caught it." Yeah, thank you. Of course, Jim has some aluminum. Yeah, so I'll tell you some more aluminum stories, but it was probably one of the best investments of my father during hyperinflation. Um, if nothing else, for the memories. But seriously, yeah. Thank you for all joining the live stream. It was fun. It actually takes much less effort and time for me to do live streams. Um, than because it's just like going into the gym, unless you have a home gym or whatever. It's making coming up with the decision of making the video is almost always harder than to do the actual video. So if I just do live stream, it's almost like jumping into the cold water, not knowing what will happen. It's much easier than just going into the pool, stepping one step and redoing the video and being too picky of, oh, I said this wrong or something like that. But it's also more fun. So thank you all, and see you next time.